Hello guys, now you have understood how to undertake the functional analysis. What are the aspects to be considered, right? After review of agreement, you are required to undertake the functional analysis. But now, before you getting into the practical part where I am going to explain how to undertake that entire functional analysis, we need to also understand and we need to conclude on the basis of functional analysis that what parties have the characteristic, so which is what we call is characterization. Basically characterization is basically we are giving a name to each of the party and basis what role it performs and basis what risk it has assumed and what basis what assets it has employed. So that is what in technical terms characterization means. That's a concluding part, that basis our analysis we understand that party is a full-fledged manufacturer or party assumes low risk and it's only engaged in distribution of the products of its overseas parent entity. So that are some types of characterizations that we have to give to the parties, right? I'll move on to the screen and where I'll show that what kind of different characterization you can give to your party, right? I'll just move to that screen. Now guys, as you can see that in case of manufacturing activity, in case of trading activity, in case of services, so there could be only our most of transactions could revolve around these three types of activities only. Now I'll just show you that what type of characterization can be placed on the entities who are engaged into the manufacturing activity, right? So the first is contract manufacturers. So contract manufacturers are those type of entities that engage in manufacturing activities on behalf of the other companies under contractual arrangement. That is what the term of contract manufacturers are. See, generally why we have to characterize this entire parties is because we need to understand that what is the type of party and what type of remuneration should be payable to that party. So you must have heard about the risk return relationship. So a party who is undertaking more functions and who is assuming more amount of risk should be remunerated in a more way, right? I mean, should be remunerated comparatively higher than the party who is taking the lower risk and performing lower functions. So that is where the gist of characterization lies, right? I hope that clarifies. Now we come to this characterization under different scenarios when each and every business is different. So and so would be the parties, right? So you need to understand that what party is performing what functions. So now you have taken the analysis, now you have to conclude that, right? And you need to understand that, okay, if this party has performed following functions and has assumed following amount of risk, then this party needs to be characterized in that manner only. So basically on that judgment you need to understand or you need to allocate the remuneration of that transaction, right? So that is what characterization is all about. We'll also see practically how we deal with that particular thing in the report, right? Now in case of manufacturing entity, predominantly I have just taken from the market practice that this could be the this could be types of entity on which you can characterize your particular client. If your client is engaged in manufacturing activity, he could be a contract manufacturer, he could be a toll manufacturer. That is, toll manufacturers are those entities that process raw material or semi-finished goods for another company and they do not take title on any goods. They are just working as a job worker, right? Then there could be a full-fledged manufacturer who executes all important functions and who also bears the market risk, business risk, all type of risk, right? So these are called full-fledged manufacturer. And after that, I have also practically I have also come across cases where the entity is engaged into assembling the products only, while under the income tax, assembling and manufacturing are one and the same only. There is no difference, but this type of entities do very low value addition to the entire product. They just assemble the product and then they after sell in the market. You may understand that what level of remuneration, what type of entity should get, right? If it's a full-fledged manufacturer, he is liable to get more remuneration in a transaction compared to the other entity who has just provided certain amount of service or who has just performed certain amount of functions, right? So that is what the entire part of characterization is. Characterization has to be done on both the parties, that is on the AE and on the other party, both the AEs, right? So if there is a distribution activity, then under distribution activity there could be a full-fledged distributor. For example, full-fledged distributor basically assumes market risk and undertakes major marketing function. So he is a whole and sole distributor of the product, and he bears the risk of inventory. He assumes market risk, in case if someone doesn't pay, or if the product, if the technology changes, then this distributor is liable for entire things. So it is called full-fledged distributor. Then there is commissioner distributor arrangement, wherein the commission arrangement, like which facilitates sales and bears limited risk, such as soliciting orders, negotiating contract, and providing after sales services. So in such kind of entities which are commissioner distributor, they are just involved in the sales function more. They are not involved in any manufacturing or pre-sales functions, right? You can understand that way. So there could be also agent distributor, that is which undertakes various activities to promote sales and facilitate transactions. They do not take ownership of the goods. So as you may knowing famous that there could be agents who can who are able to connect the seller with the buyer. So this type of entities don't assume much risk. They are just involved in the sales process, getting the orders, getting it clear. So they might not be also involved, let me tell you, also in placing PO. They'll just be involved up to the mark of placing PO and getting the quotes and sharing that quotes to the buyer entities, right? So that is how the agent, you can characterize an entity as an agent distributor if that particular entity performs such level of functions. Then it's a limited risk distributor. So these entities are basically distributors, but they assume very less risk. Like they won't assume market risk. In case anything happens, then they will shift that risk to the other party and they won't take such a risk, right? So they are limited risk distributor entities. You may find this in brand arrangement where so this type of things may happen in goods where there is an India entity which is only engaged in distributing of goods of that particular brand in India. So the overseas entity who owns that brand, who manufactures that entire product, will just sell that part to the Indian entity, and from Indian entity there will be these customers. So in case if any Indian entity faces any bad debts or any on account of all such things, they will pass on that risk to the original entity who has manufactured this product. So these are called limited risk distributor entities. And then there are licensed distributor. So so there are multinational brands who have their wholesale entity in India. I'm just giving an example, like if there's a brand XYZ in Paris and they want to market their particular things in each and every country, but from Germany, or sitting in Germany or Paris, they cannot do this, right? So they can set up the entities in every region or in every country, and that entities would be only just collecting those goods, and then after they will supplying that goods to the retailers. So they are called licensed distributors. So they are only licensed to have the goods published on the e-commerce website, etc. So that is where multinational brands follow this type of model, wherein there is a one licensed distributor or wholesaler, and then after they go ahead and sell it to the retail outlets, right? So I think I have not included here retailer also, but retailer is also they'll again take goods in a bulk quantity from their associate enterprise, and then they'll retail out the things. Now you can understand that if you just analyze this entire thing. So if there's a manufacturer entity, so now let us assume a case when the A is manufacturer, right? The A would be AE, basically associate enterprise, right? If he is a full-fledged manufacturer, then you have to characterize your AE as full-fledged manufacturer, while the Indian counterpart is only a distributor. Then your characterization for Indian counterpart would be a distributor. Now you can understand from this too that which entity should be remunerated more. So now if there is a product which has been manufactured by overseas entity, and that is being sold to a retail customer, say at X amount. So that X amount, in that particular X amount, whatever profits is these entities are being able to generate from that particular selling of that product. So then what amount of profit should be distributed to the main entity, and what amount of profit should be remunerated to the Indian entity. So that is how the characterization will help in understanding the remuneration part, right? So I hope that clarifies. Now guys, we come to service provider. Now in case of services, there could be this type of characterization possible for the entities, that is associate enterprises, right? There could be captive service provider, which from captive service provider is basically the entities providing services to single entity only. So there's only single client. So that is where it is known as captive service provider. that works as per the instructions of the party for which it provides services. The arrangement is there in such a way that that party would remunerate the cost part and some additional remuneration to that entity. So that is how generally captive service providers are being remunerated. Then there could be low value adding or support service provider, such as BPO call centers or basic levels, the entities which provide only basic level of support services, right? Then there could be high end sophisticated service providers, like for example KPOs, or there are legal professionals or technical professionals, or there's a high end technical team who's providing entire services which which are not low level, or which cannot be said to be at basic level. They require special expertise, and that's where we characterize them as high end or sophisticated service providers. And then there are classic contract arrangements, like like a logistics functions. If there are logistics function, logistics is an entire set of services, right? So logistics service provider, that type of entities may have their own remuneration model also, basis on the freight, right? So logistics service providers are there. Then there are marketing companies also, who charge on the basis of the report, etc., providing of that report. So this type of service providers are also there. And in case if your function analysis conclude that the entity is a service provider, then out of that service provider, what type of service provider that entity particular is can be understood from this entire characterization exercise, right? So this is what entire characterization exercise means is all about. You need to conclude on the part from the function analysis that what type of characterization can be applied to that particular entity. We are not going into deep theoretical aspects of characterization in this entire session, because you can read that from OECD guidelines. There are more guidelines available on characterization process, but this is general practical way when we do the characterization process. Now I'll meet you in the next video, where I am going to take a practical example of understanding all the above aspects with the help of this an illustration. I'll catch you in the next video. Enjoy learning and relax and take it easy. I'll meet you in the next video.